I thought, I'll give it a try. Oh, here we go.
Yeah, I thought I
There we go.
would forward out the link there. for
Yeah.
Anybody in here that wants to.
It's not on. Is it?
Everyone just getting it started.
Yep. I think
I don't know.
And we gotta.
Oh, we gotta.
No sound yet?
Sorry.
How come, no?
Huh?
How come you're not?
He was participating online. Can you please hit mute? It's because we're hearing a lot of voices, distortion in the background. So if your mic is on, please turn it off. I know. Yeah.
Well, I'll fill you in.
Unless you want personal conversations publicly broadcasted, please mute your mics, guys.
Oh, I was muted.
Whoever's saying they're muted. No.
Yeah, so we didn't do it, okay.
There we go.
Okay.
Okay, all right. Time is 2:16. Let's formally call this meeting to order. Before we jump into the formal agenda, as I typically do at the beginning of every meeting, I just want to take a few seconds to just do some housekeeping matters. First and foremost, welcome to the very first meeting of 2024 for the London Police Services Board. Thank you to everybody for joining us today. Couple things worth note. The Community Safety and Policing Act, the CSPA, which is a legislation we've been waiting for, anticipating for a long time now. We received word recently, it's publicly been announced by the ministry, that it will be coming into force and effect as of April 1st, 2024. And our board and our London Police Service are, busy preparing for the new legislation and the impact that it's going to have on not just the London Police Service, but every police service across the province. And so, we'll keep our eyes and ears open for any communication that comes from the government with regards to that. On December 29th, we had a new London Police Service constable swearing in ceremony here at the police headquarters. I was honored to be joined by Councillor Stevenson, Member Goss, representing the London Police Services Board. We joined Chief Trong, Deputy Chief McIntyre, Deputy Chief Bastine, and the other members of the administration and service, and we swore in, I want to say nine. Chief, nine, perfect. All right, with nine new constables to the service. Incredibly special day to swear in 9 new members to the London Police Service. It was beautiful. It's got a graduation ceremony, family and spouses, and everybody was there. It was just a great day, and looking forward to doing that a few more times over the coming months and years to bring up our complement of officers as part of the London Police Service. So that was beautiful. It's actually, for all the meetings and the committee meetings, it's kind of my favorite part of doing this job, chief and deputy chiefs, to be part of those. So I appreciate that. Just earlier this week, on January 16th, we were honored to be joined by Solicitor General Michael Kersner here at the London Police Service, as well as Minister Rob Flack, to make there was an announcement about Project Builds, which the acronym for Building Unity for London's Diverse Society. To announce a investment into London. It was a $300,000 investment, $100,000 a year for the next 3 years into London, community collaboration, and the Solicitor General, just right here in this room on Tuesday, made that announcement. I was again honored to be joined by Vice Chair Walker, representing the board here for that impactful community announcement there. So one little thing for everybody here, but more importantly, the people that are online. We have been experiencing network issues all day for our meetings earlier in the day. So if you're become disconnected online, or it's intermittent, or there's little pauses or freezes, don't worry about it. It's not you, it's it's a network thing. And so just stay on and you should be able to hear everything, okay? That's it in terms of housekeeping matters. And with that, we'll go into the formal agenda, and I will ask whether any of the members have any disclosures of interest, any conflicts of interest they want to declare at the top of the meeting. And if so, this is your opportunity to do it now. Seeing none, do any members have any new business that they want to introduce and add to the agenda? Seeing none, in your package, you have the minutes of the December 21st, 2023 meeting. Any questions, any amendments, revisions to the minutes as presented in your package?
Move to accept, Chair.
Thank you. That's moved by member Goss, seconded by member Bransco. Anyone opposed? Seeing none, the minutes are carried. Looking over to our senior leadership team, the SIU investigations report at agenda item number 5. Looking over to you, I believe, Deputy Chief Bastine.
Thank you, Chair. And through the chair, briefly, this relates to the report submitted in compliance with Ontario Regulation 26810 of the the PSA. This relates to an arrest of an individual wanted for a violent offense committed against a person with whom he was in a partner relationship, resulting in a serious injury. The SIU was notified, and then on July 12th, 2023, investigation was entered into. Ultimately, the director concluded there was no evidence of a criminal offense on the part of the officer involved. This case involved a dog bite by a police dog. Professional standards branch investigation into the related LPS procedure and the conduct of the officers involved determined that there was no evidence of misconduct, and the officers involved had adhered with all relevant procedure and legislation. Subject to any questions, that's this report recommended for its acceptance.
Thank you, Deputy Chief Bastine. Members, any questions for the Deputy Chief with regards to the report as presented? All right, seeing none, I'll need a motion and move it for the motion that the board receives for informational purposes the SIU report that was moved by Vice Chair Walker, seconded by member Goss. Anyone opposed? Seeing none, that is carried. Deputy Chief Bastine, staying with you. Agenda item number 6, service complaints in your report, sir.
And Chair, sorry, through you, I just realized that there's a second one, which I wasn't sure if the motions were tied together.
Oh, okay. So we can do it. We can do them separately. So what's the second one?
This is another SIU matter. On September 29th, the SIU reported on its investigation into the actions of an LPS officer during the arrest of an individual armed with a weapon who had damaged a car and was assaulting another individual. The SIU director concluded that there was no evidence of a criminal offense by the officer. Professional standards branch investigation into the related LPS procedures and the conduct of that officer involved followed. And the investigation yielded no evidence of misconduct and determined that the officer adhered with procedure and related legislation. Subject to any questions, it's recommended that we'll receive the report for submission.
Thank you. So any questions for the Deputy Chief on the second part of the report there? Seeing none, why don't we do the same movers and seconders as we did on that? So can we treat that as just one motion to accept then? I think it might just be easier that way. So now having received both parts of the report, it was moved by Vice Chair Walker, seconded by member Goss. Any last chance for debate discussion? Seeing none, anyone opposed? Seeing none, that is carried. Thank you, sir. Staying with you, Deputy Chief Bastine, service complaints at agenda item number 6. Look at you.
Thank you. Through the chair, this relates to a service complaint on November 15th, 2023. The complaint was issued with respect to, or was laid with the OIPRD officer, the Independent Police Review Director, with respect to the handling of outstanding warrants of arrest for 2 individuals in relation to a small claims court matter. The subject of one of the warrants was added to the police database, and in response to specific requests from the complainant, an officer attempted to locate and arrest the wanted party. The second warrant could not be processed as it lacked sufficient detail to positively identify the wanted party. So there was no further action taken with respect to that one. The service review of the complaint determined that the warrants had been appropriately processed and that reasonable attempts have been made to locate and arrest the wanted party. And that all members involved adhere to relevant LPS procedure. Subject to any questions, let's report for the board's information.
Thank you, Deputy Chief Bastine. Questions for Deputy Chief? No, before, I have a general question, and I think it's just for the benefit of anybody that may be listening, right? Could you, because you referenced the OIPRD, right? And police, like, very acronym heavy, that's.
Sure, yes.
So could you explain what the OIPRD is, and then maybe just a very, very high level overview of kind of that process, just for the benefit of everybody there?
Absolutely. Thanks, Chair. And sorry, I caught myself using the acronym
Yeah.
without the term. So it's the Office of the Independent Police Review Director, at least for the time being. There'll be some changes that will come to that with the new Community Safety and Policing Act.
Yes.
However, so this is a public complaints agency oversight body that governs the conduct of police officers and the services and policies of police services, as well as there's jurisdiction by the director to investigate systemic issues with policing. However, for the purpose as it relates to this report, this was a complaint made to the Office of the Police Review Director, screened in, classified as a service complaint, meaning it didn't pertain to the conduct of an individual officer. However, the service by the LPS as a whole in relation to this matter. So it was those complaints can either be referred back to the police service for investigation, which will happen in this case, or can be retained by the OIPRD for investigation by that agency, or referred to an outside police service. The vast majority are referred back to the police service, as was done in this case. And as required by legislation with respect to service complaints in particular, this is why we have these on the board's agenda, because the legislation does call for those to be reported back to the board. So that's, unless there are any questions, that's it in a nutshell.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. Assuming that there are no further questions, I'm gonna need a mover to receive, for informational purposes, the report by Deputy Chief Bastine, LPS service complaint. Moved by member Goss, seconded by member Branscombe. Anyone opposed to receiving that? Seeing none, that motion is carried. Deputy Chief Bastine, we're going to stay with you for a little while here. So number 7 on the agenda is complaints against police, quarter 4, 2023.
Chair, to review this, this is that's a good segue to this. This is the Q4 or year-end 2023 report on complaints. I'll take a couple of minutes just to orient the board to the reporting format. It looks a little bit different than reports past. As we work through improving our ability to capture and provide relevant data to us with respect to matters such as workflow, but also, of course, the legislative requirements and policy requirements of the board. So with respect to that, there are 6 things in particular the board requires by policy that we report on, and those are contained within this report. I'll draw your attention to, I'll go through them in order. So in relation to the type of complaints for the current year and 2 years prior, this information can be found on table 2 on page 1 of the report from the professional standards branch to me. In a nutshell, that provides a good summary of the number of complaints, be they chief's complaints that are initiated under the Police Services Act by the chief into the conduct of an officer, also known as internal complaints, local discussions, or OIPRD complaints, which are both related to the public complaint process, which I just explained. Also, the Section 32 of the SIU, which is the very first set of reports of the AU pertaining to reviews done by professional standards into the conduct and service provided by the service as it relates to SIU investigations. So there, in a nutshell, you see that overall chief's complaints are a little bit higher in 2023 years past, however, not excessively. Local discussions Again, there was a bit of drop in 2022, returning back to more normal levels in 2023. Public complaints overall are up around 8% is what these numbers are saying. So there's a slight increase that which I'm alive to and monitoring. And Section 32 reviews are quite high. So these are simply mandated whenever the SIU invokes its mandate. So we're essentially those are directly tied to the number of SIU investigations that turn to, and those can range. It's hard to really put a definitive reason behind why those might increase. Calls for service is one of them. Violent nature of the calls that our officers deal with, and there's a as we get into later in the report, I'll highlight something with respect to SIU investigation. Second or the third, I suppose, requirement is that you report on the nature of allegations. This can be found in table 7 on page 5 of the current report. So what this gives is a little bit of a snapshot as to the type of misconduct being reported or investigated, either through the public complaints process or the internal chief's complaints process under the Act. So what you hear is that discreditable conduct and neglect of duty by far make up the bulk of the allegations made against the officers. So typically, discreditable conduct can be things such as incivility or sort of behavior that doesn't meet standard. Things like if an officer is convicted of a criminal offense, there's automatically not automatically finding, however, that constitutes discreditable conduct on its face. And neglected duty, which has to do with the performance of duties of a police officer. So they historically make up the vast majority. Like, so there are no issues there, nothing of note. Roughly 45% and 48% together for discreditable, and around 30% for neglect cases. With respect to resolution of complaints, on table 8, on page 5, sorry, it's page 6. This speaks to how various cases or various complaints were resolved. And that what this table shows is the fact that of all those complaints that were reported in the previous tables, the vast majority are either not dealt with under provisions of PSA, which the not dealt with means it's screened out essentially by the OIPRD, the complaints body, prior to being referred to police service. So, and there are a number of reasons for which a complaint may be screened out, including the complaints deemed frivolous and vexatious. It may be made beyond the time period within which complaint must be made to be referred, or there might be outstanding criminal matters in relation to the same set of circumstances which require that the matter be screened out. Of these, you see that a large number of those, 65 in 2023, historically quite high in relation to the rest of the numbers, 65 in 2023, 59 the year before, 45 the year before that are unsubstantiated. And the cluster at the top of the table there, formal discipline and formal resolution, those deal with findings of cases where that was a matter substantiated. So in particular, the informal discipline or formal discipline, rule of 6 for 2023, that gives you a sense of those 300 plus complaints during the year. This is the number we deal with in terms of substantiated. Informal resolution, 42 is another good size number there. What that is the mechanism within the complaints legislation that allows for essentially mediation. I'm going to use the term mediation, but mediation is one form of an informal resolution, essentially talking through the issue. Sometimes it involves an apology or the officer and the complainant sort of meeting and sharing their views or their exchanging information to arrive at an outcome that both are happy with. Any complaints is another one. This is very straightforward on page 3. Down to the table there. However, this tells the board, how many complaints are outstanding, or how many investigations are outstanding. In that same table, we have referrals to another agency. So these are cases that, again, were sent to an agency other than the LPS for investigation by the OPRD. And that table also contains requests for review made to the board, which is the final bit required to be reported to the board. And there were none in 2023. Numbers are always very small there. I think I lost the word pending complaints. So that's table 5 on page 3. Simply gives, that's more of an indication of workload or outstanding cases when you factor in cases received during the year or carried over from a previous year and are still ongoing. So I know I've thrown a lot at you sort of verbally there. This is the new reporting format we're again trying to present. I think this is great in my view with respect to sort of the layout and the way the information is displayed. We're working towards some refinements. So if there are any questions, I'd be happy to do my best to answer those. Subject to any of those questions, that's the report for the board is received.
Thank you, Deputy Chief Vestine. Members, I know I saw Member Goss had a question. Go ahead, sir.
Comment and then question for you, Chair. Thank you, Deputy Chief. I want to say that this report is well received. The amount of detail in it, the amount of detail that's being included, the new format, this is very, very helpful. And you've heard this board talk a lot about transparency and wanting to move these type of pieces of information forward. It's very, very helpful. So thank you for that. Thank you for bringing this back to us. I do have a question on workload and professional standards unit. I'm wondering, I'm not to put you on the spot, but do we have an estimate, like how are our average response times on files? Are they up or down in comparison to years prior? And how is our complement within professional standards? Because we do see a rise in volume and whether the claim is valid or not, doesn't matter. It's supposed to be processed just the same. So there's a lot of work that comes along with that. So I'll let you answer those 2 questions and then I may have a follow-up.
So with respect to the first part of the question was the response times. Okay, so I don't have that at hand. Anecdotally it has lagged. I think we have made, I think, great strides in the past couple of months in terms of really tightening things up, working as PSB. I should thank you for the comments with respect to the report itself. I need to defer any credit to the folks in business analytics and PSB for that. But that information will be something we can pull from the data and track as a workload through the command and PSB and also through my command and the chief and deputies to monitor as to give us a sense of how quickly we're turning around, how quickly we're quick to respond. However, it's that turnaround time, and we know from discussions we've had past at this board that these things take a toll on officers, as everyone knows, and that's something that we do want to improve on. So staffing, which I think, was the second part of the question I make.
Yeah, so staffing
essentially
in PSB.
Something again very live to pulling resources from time to time as need be temporarily or sort of definitely to be able to perform as it comes in. But I'm confident that one and other data indicators that are available to us to sort of tracking system will be able to be more responsive to that. The adjustments.
Thank you. So could we ask for a report back at a future meeting just on the response time, Deputy Chief, like the amount of time it's taking to turn around these complaints? You raised 2 points there that are very top of mind for me. One, of course, we want to get back to the public as quickly as possible, but for these things that are unfounded, they are hanging over officers' heads. I'm cognizant of that as well. That's a lot of pressure and a job that's already very jam-packed with pressure. So I want to make sure that we can maybe identify issues in terms of the time it's taking and make suggestions for one question to the chief. Chief, we've talked a lot about your new service delivery model, and I guess to dovetail into the question I just asked the Deputy Chief Vestine, In the new service delivery model and with the new budget coming forward, do you see changes to the professional standards branch that will help with what we do see as a rise in complaints received year over year?
I do, absolutely. It'll impact service complaints. We anticipate to see service complaints decrease. We also believe and see efficiency being driven within the office to reduce the workload that the officers have to go through. Modernizing the organization, there's modernization that needs to be focused within that office as well, so that they can do their job much more efficient than they are doing now.
So it would be safe to say then that we would be more efficient in responding to the complaints that have been put forward by the public, as well as responding to our officers' wellness, making sure that a resolution is brought forward in a more timely manner.
Yes, Chair, through you, absolutely, yes to that. And also, yes, that service complaints, we anticipate them decreasing because our service delivery model is changing.
Fantastic. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Member Goss, any other questions from members with regards to the report? Mayor.
Yes, I appreciate the report, and everyone like more data than less, so I always like that. The challenge with more data is when there's a lack of, and I'm not sure if this is because we're required to report this, whether there's an inability to provide a bit of analysis at the start. You did so in your commentary, but for anybody picking this up and reading this, I can tell you this will be interpreted like 300 different ways by 50 people, right? Like it's because up until you dug into, here's how unsubstantiated complaints are rising, and here's how the screened out complaints are rising. But don't worry, there's only been three informal discipline, 3 informal discipline that have actually translated into substantiated, actionable changes that need to be made. That gives me great comfort because it's very easy to complain about anything. I mean, people do it all the time. I have an office where we get complaints all the time, right? And a lot of them are just frustration, anger. When response times, as Member Goss was referring to, are low and you're frustrated, make a complaint, right? Sometimes you make a complaint about the action of an officer who's just trying to get from call to call, right? And says, what is it? You can complain under the neglect of duty, let's say, which is obviously on the rise. Well, we know it's not neglect of duty, it's a resourcing issue, and there's a plan to fix that. But my point is, without some high-level analysis from people who know this best, it's really easy to interpret this in multiple ways. So I wonder if, within our obligation to report this, can there not be, like other reports at the start, just high-level points for the board or anybody else who reads the report to say, here's what's happening, but here, here's the story that the thing is telling, and then identify whether or not the board should have concerns or not based on the changing data. Because for me, when you spoke, I don't have a lot of concerns. If I were to pick just a piece of this report and only look at that data, I could say this looks like a concerning trend. So I just think data is very powerful, but without some level of expert analysis to contextualize it, it can lead to more questions than answers. So I just wonder if that's possible in the future, to provide a little bit of just a paragraph at the start to just, basically what you said in your presentation, just so they're not watching this meeting or picking this up, but getting the report off the internet, that they get kind of the analysis you gave in the same way you gave it here, to give us more of a sense on how to read the report. Because even the categorization of tables, which again, very good if you like data, not so good if you're trying to dig into, is this good or bad, right? At just the base level.
Thank you, Chair, and through you. So I appreciate that, Mayor. I think absolutely. So we want to get to a point where we could use the data, provide the data, but I hear your comment and understand exactly. So especially in this context of the complaints scheme or regime, or whatever their term is, lots of confusing and very similar terms: informal resolution, informal discipline, local discussions, local inquiries, all sorts of terminology. So I understand the request, and I know that the folks at PSB are looking at what other police services do, how they report to their boards, to see what can we learn from them, to see about how to provide something concise, the analysis, on the analysis piece, so that you can see it into 540 cases where you might want to dig in deeper. Sort of envision something where you have that high level, some of the sort of the mandatory stuff, that high points with some analysis, and then maybe more of the, if you're really curious, into the third part of it, we're doing very deep dive. So, right. I'll
Yeah.
provide that for you.
Yeah, I appreciate that. And I'm not saying anything specific. I think you understand what I'm going for. You just tell me how to read this report, where things are trending, because again, I can dig into it really deeply, but your presentation today provided an incredible amount of context to what are a lot of numbers on the page. So I appreciate that.
Thank you, Mayor. Are there any other questions? Otherwise, I'm gonna have a follow-up question to the mayor's point there. No, okay, so on the theme, Deputy Chief, of helping me to understand the report here, so at table 8, which is the resolution of all completed OIPRD, it's not even a question about the numbers, it's just the one number that jumps out at me the most is not dealt with, section 60 of the PSA, right? That's 167, which is the single largest one there. And I know that's not an us thing, that's an OIPRD analysis, right? But is that, can you maybe provide a little bit of context in terms of, you know, is that legislatively guided? Is that, how does that work for both the board's edification and others that may be listening? So.
Thank you, Chair. For you, it is, there is a framework there. I don't know all the criteria, but some of them include, there are a number of reasons for which the director may screen out a complaint or elect not to deal with it. And the few that I can think of, that the complaints made outside the time frame, or the complainant, based on the time frame, it's here, right? So the complaints made is either frivolous or made in bad faith, or the complaint sometimes can be more appropriately dealt with through another law or act. So one in particular, in addition to those, is a case where there's an arrest made, charges are laid, and there's a complaint that results from that. Anytime there's a case that involves the charges having been laid, the complaint is not dealt with, and it's referred until after the criminal matters are resolved. So that's something I can foresee, even including in a report, sort of like a glossary, sort of to orient the reader who might not be privy to an explanation or have the opportunity to ask questions, and they can see it all in one through the 4 corners of the report.
Perfect. Thank you. Sometimes it's not a good thing to have a lawyer to your right when you answer questions, but sometimes it is, right? So, thank you so much.
Lawyer with laptop.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks so much, Deputy Chief Basine. All right, last chance for questions before I ask for a motion. Can I get a motion that the board receives for informational purposes the 4th quarter complaints against police report presented by Deputy Chief Basine? Yeah, you know what, why don't I do that as a separate motion? So we'll have that moved by Councillor Stevenson, seconded by Member Branscombe. Anyone opposed? Seeing none, that is carried. We're gonna add another motion, just as a separate standalone, further to Member Goss's request that we provided with a report back to the board on that. So we can word it that a motion to direct, we'll just say the administration to provide a report back at a future board meeting, or
I don't know how long it would take.
yeah,
So
I want to bind you guys by, so I'm gonna say a future board meeting to provide a report back to the board there. So I'll have that moved by Member Goss, seconded by Vice Chair Walker. Anyone opposed? Seeing none, that is carried. All right. Chief Bastine, I don't think you're off the hook. You are not off the hook. We're going to stay with you for a little bit. So suspect apprehension pursuits Q4 2023. Staying with you, sir.
Thank you, Chair, through you. Again, a report for you with quite a bit of detail, not as many tables. It's all contained right here. Well, this is the report on for suspect apprehension pursuits. So just briefly, last 2 months of 2023, there was one such pursuit. There was a number of charges laid with no damage to property. The vast majority of cases involving a mobile occurrence do not result in a pursuit. I think I've reported to the board previously, meetings past, about the fact that police vehicle operation, suspect apprehension pursuit training it's not contained within this report because I felt it would be redundant. However, that we feel is still having an impact on the officer performance with respect to this very high risk endeavor. So to take questions the board may have.
So to the board, we'll hold up on the complaints, but we will entertain the questions there. So we'll go member Branscombe, member Goss.
Not a question really, but I think this is a classic example of how technology can really assist. This is everywhere. This is a really risky business for the police officer, the suspect, and the community. And I had to actually Google what a star chaser was. So I'm terribly impressed, but it also leads to all the things we're talking about with the new budget too, with all the technology that's available that we aren't using yet. That will assist us in very many other ways as well. So I'm really heartened by this. I think this is marvelous, and I hope that we can see, as we embrace technology in this police department, that we'll see other benefits that we haven't even really thought about. So I'm really excited about that. So thank you for the report, and it's great to see a report like this.
Thank you, member Branscombe. Member Goss.
I just have a question I've been asked, and I was hoping that the chief could give me clarification on this. Are London police officers permitted to make contact with their cruiser against suspect vehicles who may be fleeing police? So the police be making the contact in order to stop that vehicle. Is that permitted here?
Chair, through you, thank you for the question. That's an excellent question, sir. Under the Ontario regulations, police officers are permitted in certain circumstances. They have to meet the 3-part test. And in that particular case, sir, if they are making contact with the police vehicle in a suspect vehicle and engaging in pursuit, they have to believe that doing so will prevent loss of life or serious bodily harm to a member of the public. So they're constantly reassessing. That is under the regulations, that is the only time you're permitted to make contact during a pursuit outside of other situations, such as you're in a pursuit, suspect vehicle perhaps lost control, has collided, and you're pinning the suspect vehicle against another object or positioning your vehicle. You can make contact during that, during those circumstances.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any further questions? I have one. Assuming nobody else has any. Okay. I mentioned in my opening comments, you swore in 9 brand new constables, right? As part of, any new constables that we swear into the service, are there any specialized training or guidance that's provided to them with regards to suspect apprehension pursuits? And if so, what?
Yes, Chair, and through you, great comment. And I will add to Member Branscome's comments about use of technology. We see the decline in pursuits. Absolutely, technology assists us in that and reduces risk to the public. But I will give credit to our training staff. Our all new recruits, even experienced officers, are trained within in-house with respect to suspect apprehension pursuits. All new recruits go through basic constable training at the Ontario Police College. They receive training that is the same across the province. And then when they come back here in London they receive specific training with respect to suspect apprehension pursuit. So it's a combination. It's a good news story with the technology and the training that they get from our members.
Thank you, Chief. All right. Thank you. That's Member Branscombe that the board receives for informational purposes the 4th quarter suspect apprehension pursuits, right? Nope. Yeah, no, that's it. Report there. That's moved by Member Branscombe, seconded by Councillor Stevens.
Sorry, Chair, I just have one more question. If you indulge me.
Yeah, we're not going to vote on that just yet.
Yeah, it's just one more. So I never thought I had 2 questions about the subject apprehension pursuits report, but you brought up an interesting point about the training that is provided to the new constables. And I was wondering, so we talked about star chase that's used. There's also other techniques that you've seen, like where some cruisers are equipped with these nets that kind of go up in the tires and can stop a vehicle. what goes into choosing what one force uses over another force? Because, you know, you've heard some people say, you know, Star Chase, there's a lot of positives to it. However, sometimes the glue needs to heat up. It, you know, has to be the right situation, be close enough to the vehicle. So how does the LPS determine which method to use over, let's say, Toronto Police or the OPP?
Chair, through you. Another great question. So as long as we are selecting the techniques that we're committed to within the adequacy standards and the Ontario regulations, that's one consideration. But there's a lot of technology out there. There's a lot of organizations that specialize in servicing and providing technology to police services. That is something that look at that product. We determine if it's a need here, because I can tell you every police service is different and jurisdictions are different, and not all police services are using the same technology that we have. That is a discussion amongst the senior command. We get recommendations to our experts. Our experts are also within the working groups that the Ontario Association of Chiefs of Police, training committees. So it's a discussion amongst the province, our experts, and we get the recommendations, and ultimately we make a decision as long as we're permitted under legislation. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Any last second questions? Any last second questions? Okay. Let's try it again. That the board receives for informational purposes the fourth quarter suspect apprehension pursuits report that was moved by, I believe, member Branscombe, seconded by Councillor Stevenson. Anyone opposed? Seeing none, that is carried. Deputy Chief Bastien, we're getting our money's worth today. Staying with you, sir. For the Crime Stoppers statistics report.
Experience for you. So this report, as I'm about to present it, occurs to me that could probably use a little bit more analysis as well. However, just high level, in terms of the number of tips received in 2023, they were down 4% in relation to tips received to arrest, cleared cases and charges laid. So in the case of arrest, cleared cases and charges laid, those are down about 30%. Table 2 and chart 2 and 3 show property recovered and controlled substances seized. So it's 2 and 4, and the fourth one is rewards paid versus cash seized. So both of those indicators are susceptible to fairly wide swings depending on the nature that's being shared. So we have had occasion 2022 get a tip that was to be a huge seizure that does spike the numbers, of course. So overall, you know, they're more or less constant. However, I am, you know, the gradual sort of decline in the past 5+ years is evident based on the statistics. So although Crime Stoppers is not a service which we are the lead on, we are partners with Middlesex Crime Stoppers. I am alive to it, and we'll be looking at other ways that we can try to encourage calling in or reporting tips online to move these numbers. Again, we are susceptible to people's ability to know what's going on and have access to information, but all things being equal, we would think to see kind of a steady number. So that's something I'm alive to, but somebody should take any questions the board may have. That's the report for this now.
Thank you, Deputy Chief Bastien. Despite my wife saying I can't multitask and do two things at once, I was listening and listening. So does anyone have any questions with regards to Deputy Chief's report? Thank you. That is moved by member Branscombe, seconded by member Goss. Anyone opposed? Again, technically to receive for informational purposes the Deputy Chief's report. Seconded. Anyone opposed? Seeing none, that is carried. I'm just shooting myself in the foot in light of what I just said about multitasking. I got to raise on down here. Perfect. Thank you. All right, moving on in our agenda, we will go to, I think Deputy Chief Bastien will give you a break. You can stand down for a couple of minutes there. So I'll take it from here. We have the chair's verbal update. Oh, yeah, well, stay with me anyway. So the ARAP, so, just because it's the first meeting of the year, I might as well take this opportunity to discuss kind of the general structure of some of our advisory panels and then a report that we provide there. So we have two advisory panels. We have our board, and then we have something called the ARAP, which is the Anti-Racism Advisory Panel, and then MHAP, which is the Mental Health Addictions Panel. They exist as advisory panels to the board. So we meet semi-regularly, and so I'm going to give you a report on ARAP here. We met on January 10th, and some of the work that we've been doing at ARAP, we've been looking at two things specifically, our terms of reference. And so over the last number of months, we've been going through the terms of reference just to see whether they need updating as part of kind of a regular housekeeping exercise. In your package, you will have seen the terms of reference in there. There's some minor adjustments to the terms of reference. And so I don't know if there's any questions with regards to the terms of reference that anybody has on the board, but it's there for you. And then the second thing that we've been doing at ARAP was we've been looking at the Ontario Human Rights Commission framework for change to address systemic racism in policing. It was a report generated and prepared and produced by the Ontario Human Rights Commission, where they outlined a series of recommendations. Every meeting, we dedicate a little bit of time to go through the actual commission's report to just examine and discuss some of those recommendations. That's something that we've been doing for a little while. We'll continue to do for a little while as part of that panel there. So that is really the extent of the ARAP. I believe our next scheduled meeting is sometime in February, and then I'll report back as required there. So any questions for me with regards to the ARAP report that I just provided? Perfect. So yeah, thank you for informational purposes. Thank you. That would be Member Branscombe, seconded by Vice Chair Walker. Anyone opposed? Seeing none, that is carried. Okay. Staying with me, we have the chair's verbal update. So I wanted to take this opportunity just to bring the board up to speed, administration and members of the public and media with regards to the deputy chief recruitment process. As I think most of us know, that there is a deputy recruitment process that's currently underway for a third deputy chief. The board recently decided to create a third deputy chief position. Historically, for as long as I can remember, at least in the last 3 decades, we've always had the structure where we have a chief of police and then 2 deputy chiefs, one dealing with operations, 1 deputy chief for operations, 1 deputy chief for administration, in recognition of not just a growing service, but also a rapidly growing city. With increased needs and increased demands, we as a board decided that we would create a third deputy position. I just want to give you a progress update as to where we are right now. So the posting's live. It's been live for a few weeks right now. It's open to both internal candidates and external candidates to apply from either within the service or across not just the province, but the country. And then I think later towards the end of the month, the posting will close. And then it'll be the duty and responsibility of the board to take the applications, review them all, do first round interviews, do second round interviews, and then ultimately come to a decision as to the hiring of a third deputy chief. We hope to be in a position to hire that position for sometime in the spring. But as you can imagine, it takes time to go through the applications and the interview process, but in the spring, you can quote me on that. I'm not going to give you a specific date, but in the spring, at some point, we hope to be in a position to announce the hiring of our third deputy chief here. So I wanted to provide an update to you, my colleagues, and to the members of the media and public as to where we're at with that process. We are also, as you're aware, the budget process through City Council is currently underway. Recently, the London Police Services Board passed a multi-year budget here. It goes to City Council for their review and consideration. I would direct anybody who's interested. There's a series of city-run as well as Counselor One consultations and, public input sessions that are taking place. You can go to, I'm looking to the mayor here, to the City of London website that would list, some of the public input dates.
Sure. I think the best spot to start with would be getinvolved.london.ca/budget.
Get involved.
London.ca/budget.
Yeah, it's good to have the mayor, just like it's good to have a lawyer, good to have the mayor here right there, so, thank you, so yeah, and check that website out, reach out to your city councillor. If you have any questions with regards to that process, or, when they're holding their town halls, get engaged, ask questions, and be involved. January 9th, third point, was National Law Enforcement Appreciation Day. And I would be remiss, even though we're a little bit removed from that, for not taking the opportunity to say thank you to our members of the London Police Service for all of the incredible work that you do, the dedication, the time, the effort, the passion, putting yourselves in the line of sacrifice and putting yourselves on the front line for our collective safety. And so to you, Chief Trung, Deputy Chief McIntyre, Deputy Chief Bastine, and quite literally every single member of the London Police Service, you have our, I'm not usually lost for words, but you have our undying appreciation for everything that you guys do on a day-to-day basis, things that most of us will never even know, let alone appreciate, kind of the things that you see and you deal with. So I just wanted to take a moment on behalf of the board to say thank you, a little belated thank you. I did say it on the 9th, by the way, publicly, but here at this board to say thank you for everything that you guys do, continue to do to make this city safe. And we have your back as a board to do our job, to provide you with the resources, to provide you with the support to make, to continue making the city safe and safer now. So thank you for everything that you guys do. That is it for my verbal report. If members have any questions with regards to anything that I shared, I would be pleased to answer those right now, feeling which I will ask for a mover to accept the report.
So moved.
Thank you. Moved by Member Goss, seconded by Councillor Stevenson. Anyone opposed? Seeing none, that is carried. If I could, 13 on the agenda is the London Police Association verbal report. So I'd ask,
We'll go 12.
what I.
Yeah, so I
No,
don't
fine.
have a report. I don't know. Thank you.
I knew that, but thank you. My team is, you guys are amazing. So no, I appreciate that.
Everybody trusts.
So we'll go to 13. So I thank you to both of you guys for joining us, Mr. Robson, Mr. Bezaire, for the London Police Association. Over to you.
Thank you very much for once again giving us an opportunity to speak to you. I think we ended last year on a relatively high note, so I thought, why not start 2024 on a relatively high note as well? So we wanted to introduce a couple more initiatives that the London Police Association engaged in. We donate about $50,000 into the community through a donation fund that we collect, and about another $50,000 to $75,000 to registered charities in the community annually. Now that money comes directly from our members. It's not any money that comes from the police service, directly from our members. We wanted to introduce you to a couple of the initiatives that we're involved in. One of them is Survivors of Law Enforcement. Now this is a group of folks that have lost a member that was a police officer in law enforcement, and they are a group that support each other and also provide services such as counseling for family and children that may be left behind as well. As you know, the board, this board joins the LPA in a donation that we make to Western University every year for a bursary for students that may not otherwise be have the criteria and the eligibility for financing to study in relation to police work. And then I'm going to turn it over to Gary here to talk momentarily about another donation that we made recently, and then I'll have one summary to follow.
Thanks, Rick. So we donated $1,000 to Kids Help Home, but what was unique, usually we go ourselves, members of the London Police, or we'll just mail the checks, but this time we actually had a gentleman by the name of Sav Neff. He's a friend of mine. He's vice president of the Dad Club London, if you've heard of that. And Sav grew up in London housing. Grew up actually playing with the London Police Rugby League that we sponsor here. And he grew up dealing with Kids Help Home. So I thought it was great that we had Sav go to the Kids Help Home on behalf of London Police Association and give the check to it. Sav's a huge supporter of London Police. He's just a great guy. So it's pretty cool to have that, actually let him do that. So it meant a lot for Sav, it meant a lot for us to be able to do that.
Oh.
There's Sav on the left.
That's loud.
Yeah.
great.
Sav's the unofficial super fan of the London Knights right now too. So. I know the Chiefs a new hockey fan.
The final initiative I want to bring to your attention is the bursary that we provide, and it's called the Madison Fraser bursary. And we'll actually let the vice chair speak to its formation, as she was a large part of this year and seeing it come to fruition. This is a letter that we got from a recipient of that bursary last year. It's 3 pages, but I'm gonna go through just the highlights for you. I'm not gonna read the entire 3 pages for you, but they wanted to reach out to the London Police Association after they received the bursary and provide some thoughts. So this young lady is a orphan through genocide in Rwanda. At 14, she was living on the streets, and she went to live with an aunt. Her aunt introduced her to the world of men's violence against girls and women. Her aunt ran a brothel and expected her own children to sell their sexual services. She refused. As a result, she was forced to sleep outside and was denied food. At 15, her aunt sold her and sold her to another man with whom she had a child. Her aunt, these are, and I'll read some quotes that she